I think the mad rush at the top of the hour is done, so I will get started. So thank you to everyone, one for attending, and also for those of you that submitted questions in advance. I'm actually going to end up going through some of those questions that were already submitted, sort of really focus on sort of Q&A here, as opposed, and as well as some of the new features that of myTurn that you may or may not be using already. And then I want to leave a lot of additional time for more Q&A, discussion, and any other questions that have come up that people didn't have a chance to submit. So that way we can really focus on the things that are going to be most useful to all of you. And with that, I will get started. I have a couple of screens here, so I'm going to actually stop my video so I'm not looking up and down, and I will get started. So and I'm actually here in the admin dashboard that most of you should be pretty familiar with myTurn. One of the questions that we received were basically, how do I tell my top items, a longer report than sort of this the little list here that's kind of your top items of all time. And that one is nice and easy. Under reports usage, you can actually run usage reports between arbitrary dates. So if you want to get what are your top items, based on number of loans over the last month, over the last quarter, over the last year, you can do that. You can even group by item type. And so by default, it's going to show you the last month, but you can change that basically to be, as I mentioned, arbitrary dates. So you can basically see what were the items that were used the most. Now, the one thing that doesn't tell you is items that were not used during that time period. Because that report will only basically look at loans that were done during those dates. So for finding out when was the last time an item went out, and also the total number of times it's ever gone out, the best way to do that is actually under reports last use. You can sort that by the last loan, and if there is no last loan, that means that the items have actually never gone out. And you can also obviously sort this by total number of loans. And so that'll give you what are your most popular items of all time rather than across dates. And this report basically always will show you all your items unless you group by item type. You can also, by default, disabled items. We often get asked, like, how can we delete items? You still can't, but any items with a disabled status will not show up by default pretty much anywhere. And that includes now on most of these reports, but you can also show the disabled items on the last use report if you sort of want to get an idea of what were your top items of all time, including ones that are now perhaps gone. And basically giving an item that disabled status basically hides it from admins, from users, unless you explicitly say you want to see it. The only place you might see a disabled item is if you're running a report and it happens to show up. And part of the reason we don't allow deleting items is it would impact your stats and where you saw items. While we're talking, and this report can also be grouped by item type. While I am talking about that, let me see if okay. We have talking about item types, that is. We have a new little setting under settings, inventory, configure item types. Most of you are tool libraries. If you do not have things like art, assistive technology, clothing, etc., you can actually hide the other types of items that you don't have now. This is really only going to impact the administrative side of things, but it may make things a little bit easier. So I'm going to basically, let's say that, we'll get rid of science and engineering. We'll just show tools. And if I basically disable all the item types except for tools, when you go to things like the add new item page it's going to actually start with just your types of tools. So you're not going to see things like art and sports. If you do have, and it will warn you that it's item types have been filtered on this page, because we pretty much anticipated that as soon as we allowed this, people are going to be like, why can't I add items of other types? So let's say you do have tools, but then maybe you also handle kitchen items, dehydrators, apple cider presses, things like that. Now, if we go back, you will have basically just those types that are enabled. A little bit easier, especially for, say, volunteers who are working with your inventory. So that way they don't have to see tons of different item types. And speaking of volunteers, one other thing I will mention is that if you're not already, and I know so many of you actually were probably using myTurn before we had limited admins, you can actually, so you can grant super administrator privileges, which shows all the settings, everything else, but you can also have administrators that are more limited. So that way you can have an administrator that just has access to loans, or basically, and that will include loans and reservations. So that way they can't add or edit inventory. Other admins that can just work with inventory, or the combination of the two. And if you give them both, they'll have basically everything they need for day-to-day operations, including adding or editing items, processing loans and reservations, but they won't be able to change the overall settings for your organization. So we definitely have some of our customers where they have volunteers that they're just coming in to work with inventory. You can just give them inventory privileges. So let me just jump back to the admin. Another question that came up was basically doing one-time maintenance. So let's say that you have pick an item that's actually checked in, a random orbit sander came in, cord's broken, you need to do a one-time repair. You can click maintenance on that item. In the past, you really could only use scheduled maintenance. You can now actually start, which will basically say this item either needs maintenance, or you're going to start it or put it into maintenance, or record if you're going to do the maintenance and finish it at the same time and you just want to record it was done. But you can now do things like a one-time repair. So, and I'll show how that's set up, where it's not going to, you'll still need to specify, if you're starting this today, who's doing the work, if it's being done yet. And so if you start the maintenance, that means this item needs maintenance, and it's basically, you want to take it out of service. You can click save. So this is start, status is partial, meaning it's not completed yet. And when you're done, you can record that maintenance. So previously, all the maintenance plans had essentially a duration or a recurring schedule. You can now, under settings, inventory, maintenance plan, set the frequency for maintenance. So we have this one-time repair of basically 0 months. So we're going to be doing additional improvements to maintenance, things like be able to automatically set a status when you start maintenance, as well as automatically have items go into maintenance after they're checked in. So if you have something for those of you crazy enough to, say, lend out chainsaws that should have the chains checked every time they come back, you'll actually be able to set maintenance. So the item will automatically go into a maintenance status, making it unavailable until maintenance is created. That's not yet. We don't have that in there yet, but that's going to be coming soon. Not giving an ETA on anything at the moment, but that will also be coming. So I'm going to go out to the public site. We have a couple of recent improvements on the public view. I'll show you a quick, easy one first. I'm going to actually go into sort of mobile view. Previously, when you were in mobile view, it would show all of your categories and item types at the top before you even got to the items. Those are now hidden behind a little panel for filters. So just to basically, we've been doing some additional improvements on mobile view for your public site. Another item that's been improved recently is when you start a reservation. So there are actually a couple of things here. If you haven't seen it yet, we have reservation time slots. When you're a regular user, you will only see time slots with basically available appointments. For each time slot, you can set the number of appointments that are allowed during that time. And I'll show how this is configured in a little bit. The other thing you may have noticed, as soon as I clicked Tuesday, the end date was selected automatically. That's a new option as well. We don't usually recommend using that option, especially if you're open multiple days per week. Just basically encourage people to only reserve items for as long as they actually need them. But if you're only open once a week, say especially during COVID, and your loan length is 1 week or 2 weeks, and you want basically people not to have to set that end date, you can now automatically have the end date selected. Just removes one thing that they need to pick. This pop-up panel will also now give them a little better summary. So it'll give them their start and end date, how long it's going to be. And then we added a button to go straight to the cart because one of the items that people were a little bit confused about is sometimes they think, oh, as soon as I select the item and the dates, it's reserved. So this helps make it a little bit more clear, in addition to the text up at the top that no one will read, that you can either add more items to your reservation or go immediately to your cart. So the cart button obviously goes to the reservation cart. Add items would have basically just closed the pop-up and allowed people to add additional items. So, and I'll just for anyone who hasn't seen, or if you're not using reservations, I added a second item to the reservation. I'm an administrator. Administrator is basically a regular user with administrative privileges. So I can also submit reservations for myself. And I'll just sort of submit that reservation. And away we go. One other thing, if you don't know about it already, on reservations, although hopefully you do, actually, you can, if you basically search for, find a user or click their username anywhere, you can actually start and create a reservation on behalf of a user. So basically find that user, there's a reserve button up on the toolbar. And so similarly, you won't need to, most of you don't have multiple locations, but if you did, you could actually allow people to select a pickup location, but normally it would basically just be, select the start and the return date. And again, same thing, but you can actually then create a reservation directly for another user. That's not that new. I think that's been around for about 1.5 years or 2 years, but if you didn't know about it, it's a good one to know about. And I will show one additional item on the that's relatively new. So I'm jumping over actually to our test environment, so a demo site in our test environment. And this is our recurring memberships. So I'm actually on the add account, create account page. Here, I'll actually go to that rather than starting there. So, and I'll actually go through sort of the process. So we'll go with demo user. Try to pick a unique email address. I got it. Okay, there were also some questions about going completely paperless and having agreements. We have you can set one or multiple agreements. They can be before the person creates their account, which is a great place for a data privacy agreement. So basically letting them know what your privacy policies are before you collect their information. They'll need to check that off to basically proceed at this point. On the sign up page, you can also require an address, a phone number, a couple of other items, and we're going to be adding more flexibility there. That's on the registration options. I'll go back to that in a bit, but for the moment, I'm going to do the sign up and create this new user. You can also have agreements that show up full page when the user has created their account. So this is a good place where for your, more for your terms of use, your loan agreements, etc. As you know, they're going to have seen it. They have to scroll down to the bottom. You can either have just a button or require them to type in their name. And the agreements can be edited and added right through myTurn. They are in text. And then, as most of you know, you can have multiple types of memberships. A few changes and additions here, though, is that we have an option that you can allow automatic renewal. So basically, that's for things like recurring memberships. So if you're using our online payment system or integration with Stripe, you can allow people to basically purchase a membership right up front, have it automatically renew, and that makes it much more convenient for doing things like monthly or quarterly memberships. We still have the same flexibility on membership duration, but you can now also have any of those types automatically renew, including yearly memberships. The members will get a warning currently 3 days before their membership is due to automatically renew. So they'll get a warning that it's going to renew, and we're going to be adding a setting by membership type, so that way you can set how far in advance that warning comes. And we've added a couple of options to our flexible memberships, where you can set basically not just the recommended amount, but also a minimum amount. I don't believe we have a way to set a maximum amount, but if someone wants to, pay more for a flexible membership, that's great. So this is, flexible memberships are nice either for if you do your memberships on a donation basis as opposed to them being required. This way people can pay what they want, but then you can also set a minimum amount. In our test environment, so I'll actually go through sort of the quick payment process using the test card, submit. And basically this member has, I've now signed up. I have a monthly membership. My expiration is a month from now. Automatic renewal is enabled. I can disable it at any time unless I have an item checked out or have an item reserved. And my credit card is saved on file for that renewal. And one other item on sort of reservations and cards on file, you can also require that a card be on file for people to place a reservation, and basically if they have any active reservations, they won't be able to remove their card from being on file. And I'm going to jump back to our main demo site, and I'm going to mention a couple of items that are coming soon. So the one that's up next, and we're hoping to have out by the end of this week, or actually live next weekend, is going to be gift cards or gift certificates sold right through myTurn. So those will be able to be purchased by members or non-members, and they'll be able, actually I can show you some of the options on that. Let me just log in. Now this is on, I said this is not live yet, but it is up on our test site. I believe. Oh, actually, no, it's not. It's but it is on my local computer, which is not working right now. Okay, so I'll just talk about that. So gift cards will you'll be able to set up fixed amounts or allow people to specify what they want to pay, where you can set a minimum and maximum. And you'll be able to set up different basically amounts for allow people to select different gift card amounts. They'll be able to purchase those online via credit or debit card. And the gift card they'll be able to email them to the person, to the recipient. Right now, it's going to be an immediate email for the first release, or they can basically just email that gift card to themselves, so that way they can print it out and return it. We'll have QR codes in there to make it a little bit easier. So if someone does want to print it out and send it to a friend, a family member, they'll be able to just kind of scan that, and it'll take them on straight to the redeem, which would guide them through their ability to basically create an account, redeem the gift card, and then purchase a membership. In the first version, the way it will work is those gift cards will basically need to be redeemed first, and it will add the value of the gift card onto their account. And then if they want to purchase a membership or they come in the first time, you'll see that basically the amount of that gift card already on their account. Another little item that's coming up in an upcoming release is going to be, right now you can sort by name of item or relevance. And relevance is most useful for searching. We're going to have an option to sort by the most recently added items to inventory, so people will be able to see what's new. We'll likely also add a link on the left to basically show the newest items, and then soon after that we'll also have a most popular. We're figuring out a little bit of how we want to define most popular, because we don't want to do it for all time, so it'll probably be either a little bit of waiting for all time, but then more waiting for items that have been used more recently. And then the other big item that will be coming out before the end of the year, and this was another question that we got, are membership reports. So those membership reports will allow you to see during a time period how many renewals you've had, how many new members you've had, and then most likely by membership type, how many people switch to that membership type and how many people switch from that membership type. Many of our customers have different, basically different membership types and multiple different types of members. So it's a little bit tough to go, okay, how many active members do we have each month? So we're going to give you the ability to sort of run those, more specific membership types, separate out that data or those membership reports by membership type. So that way you can get a much better handle on how many people are renewing, how many people are not renewing, etc. And let me see, what were some of the other questions? Oh, so on reservations, and especially during COVID, there were some questions on sort of COVID handling, and the time slots that I mentioned earlier are basically a good way you can limit the number of people that are showing up. Basically, if reservations are enabled, you can and if you have multiple locations, you can set time slots by location. But for example, for any of the days you're open, you can set pickup time slots. I'll actually reset the Tuesday time slots. You can set the length of time in minutes, or they're all day by default. Or let's say you want to have 15-minute time slots and allow only one person by default, you can do that. Or you could have 30 minutes and allow 2 appointments or 2 people to come and pick up during that time period. I'll start there. And then what you can also do is actually edit the number of appointments for each time slot. So if you either, every couple of hours, you want to basically make sure you have 0 time slots to give you some time to catch up, or in case people are running late, or you want to, take a break at lunch, you can do that. And if you don't want people to sort of be picking up right at the end of the day, you can basically set the number of appointments that are allowed for each one of those time slots. You can also use this. We have 1 or 2 customers that do all day time slots, and they just want to limit the number of people that can place a reservation or number of appointments for the whole day. You can do that as well. And you can even change this sort of day by day. We will be expanding this functionality to also have more arbitrary, essentially, appointments. So you'll be able to use for both returns, as well as if someone's not sure what they want, they don't want to place a reservation, they just want to set up an appointment with you. And it will basically tie in with these pickup time slots that we already have. So that way you're still not overbooking or having too many people show up at the same time. So there are a few other features that we added during COVID, including on the loan reports. If you select all checked out, generate a report. Hopefully you won't have to, but if you do need to basically suspend operations for a little while. So let me just show that again. So under reports, loan reports, you can select any of the options, but you do need to just select all items that are checked out. So you can basically say loans that started between certain periods. There's now a renew all option. So you can basically renew or extend all of the loans for items that are currently checked out. So if you need to close for a week or for a couple of weeks, you can basically set the new due date on those items to be, say, let's say you're, for some reason, you need to close for the rest of the year. You're going to open on Monday, January 4th. That will extend all the loans until Monday, January 4th. You can either send basically the transaction receipts, and you can customize those so that way you can let people know that you're closing, or not send them, and you can just basically silently extend those loans. So we added that pretty early. That's probably the first feature we added when the pandemic hit, so that way our customers basically could extend their loans, just they were going to be closed, and many wait, and that way you don't have people getting notices that their items are due back or late, or accruing late fees. So one of the other questions, and I'll log in as a regular user for this, was about self-renewal, renewal of loans. And you can allow your members to self-renew their loans. And basically, if you allow it, and there's some other rules, for example, you can make sure that you can specify that they can only renew a loan halfway through the loan period or percentage. So that way they don't just get home and go, okay, I just want to double the length of time I have this out. This way, sort of encourage them to only renew if they really need to. So they can find their loans, click renew, and then select basically days that they can renew to. Let me see if I have a. I'll actually also show this on our test site, which has credit cards set up. I'll just do this as an administrator, but it will work similarly as you saw for a regular user. You can also allow them to renew if they have late fees and you're using our payments system. And the system will basically charge their, it'll basically allow them to pay their late fees on those items and then do the renewal. With the self-renewal, it will only allow them to renew up until either your maximum reservation length or when that item is needed for another reservation. So it will honor the rest of the reservation system. So I'll just do pay. It'll use my card on file. And so I was able to self-renew even an item that's overdue with late fees. Previously, you weren't basically allowed to self-renew an item that was already overdue, especially if you had late fees. Now you can do that. And then one other related question. Let's log in. Admin. Oh, actually, I'm going to do this. Do this over here. One person had asked how you can prevent people from reserving items for the day they're due back. So under settings, loans and reservations, if you're not using buffer days, make sure allow reservations to start on the same day the item is due back is unchecked. That's if you're not using our buffer day feature. We do also have, and I'm going to go back to our main demo site here. Sorry for jumping between them, but the site is configured a little differently. We also have what we call reservation buffer days. Let's see if I have that. If you're using them, what you'll see is instead of items being in stock, you might see a check availability. And basically, this item is reserved. There are two, basically we have some buffer, these I believe are actually some buffer days from the previous loan. This item's actually reserved, and then there are two basically buffer days configured for this type of item after the item's returned. And you can set two types of buffers. One's a now buffer, meaning how soon from now can someone reserve? And so that can be 0 days, meaning they can reserve today. 1 day they can, the soonest they can reserve is tomorrow. And then you can set between buffer days, which will basically be put right on the reservation as it's even displayed on the calendar in gray. Those will be the buffer days to help ensure the item is back on time. Basically give you a little time. Or again, during COVID, another thing that some of our customers are doing are quarantining items for a couple of days after they come back. To ensure basically any viral load on them is dead. Latest science seems to not necessarily need to do that, but I fully encourage you to be as safe as possible. We are enabling the reservation buffer day feature. It's usually extra cost, but we are enabling that for anyone who asks during COVID. So if you don't already have it on your site and you do want those either now and or between buffer days, send a note to support@myturn.com or to me directly, and we're happy to enable reservation buffer days. You can learn more about buffer days on our support site, and when you're logged in as an admin, you can get to our support site with this little too faint question mark in a circle. And basically the support site will have, you can just do things like search for buffer, and it'll give you screenshot, show you what the buffers look like. And then if you haven't visited our support site in a while, you can also now find a growing number of videos that will take you through common tasks like creating additional admin users. If you're not already using our build order process, there's also a video to sort of run through that process as well. And that reminds me of, I think, the last question, pre-question, then I'll open up for new questions. So someone had asked, how do I sort of cancel a reservation without emailing the user? So maybe it's a reservation in the past, and you can get to past reservations using this little back button, which we're also going to be making more prominent shortly. And let's say you've already fulfilled the reservation. Let me see if I have any, or maybe it just wasn't picked up. So let's say this reservation wasn't picked up. So we're going to be adding a cancel or delete button for reservations that will basically just remove them from the system, or at least cancel them without emailing the user. So that way, if say you did fulfill it or the person decided they didn't want it, you don't want to email them, don't want them to see a deny message, or say someone just didn't pick it up. What you'll actually be able to do is, let's see, a little bit of pain on a multi-item order. But if you want to, until we add that cancel or delete, if you delete all the items from a reservation, that reservation will actually, I think you might also need to cancel the order. That reservation will actually disappear. So I'll actually do it to this ice cream maker. I'll do a build order. I'm going to remove all the items from the reservation. I'll then cancel order. I don't think that matters. But that ice cream maker, which was the second reservation, will actually not show up anymore. This was a different reservation with the one I removed. So sort of until we add that cancel reservation option, if you remove all the items from a reservation, that will essentially work. And it'll hide, basically the system will hide any reservations that have 0 items on them. So that also came up as one of our customers asked. This person placed a reservation and I can't find it. They had accidentally removed all the items from it, and so it was hidden by default. And just take a quick look. Oh, so there were two other questions up front. One was the ability for members to see location codes. So we don't have an option to allow the members to see location codes. That has been asked for once or twice. So it is on our roadmap, and we will definitely add that if that's something that's important to you. So that way people may be at home, if you allow them to sort of go wander around and grab their items off the shelves themselves. Most of our customers, most libraries don't usually do that, or they let them wander, but they'll still help out. But if you do want that, sort of let us know, because then we know how much to boost that in priority. And another one that is on our roadmap, I don't have an ETA for, is wish lists, to allow you to add items that are basically on a wish list. And we actually plan on integrating that with another new feature that's coming next year, which will be the ability to purchase items. So basically what you'll be able to do is add a wish list item with a cost, allow someone to actually purchase it for you as well. So if they want to, say, sponsor an item or purchase it for the tool library, so they know what you need, and then even pay for that item for you, that'll be coming next year. And with that, I think I've been going for about 35